The Canadair Sabre was a jet fighter aircraft built by Canadair under license from North American Aviation. A variant of the North American F-86 Sabre, it was produced until 1958 and used primarily by the Royal Canadian Air Force until replaced with the Canadair CF-104 in 1962. Several other air forces also operated the aircraft. Design and development. In 1948, the Canadian government decided to re-equip the RCAF with the F-86 Sabre, with Canadair contracted to produce them in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. An initial batch of 10 aircraft was ordered for tool verification. The Korean War changed this to a production batch of 100 aircraft. Canadair slowly built up its production facility to make all components with related equipment obtained from other Canadian suppliers. Canadair gave the Sabre the project number CL-13. Canadair produced 6 versions of the CL-13 Sabre. The Seoul Sabre Mk1 was essentially the same as the North American Sabre F-86A. It had a General Electric J47GE13 turbojet of 5,200 pound-forces thrust. The Sabre Mk2 had the same engine, although after the first 20 aircraft were produced, the remainder of the production run was distinguished in having power-assisted controls and an all-flying tailplane. The Seoul Sabre Mk3 was the first of the Canadian Sabres to use the Avro-Canada Orunda turbojet thrust. The Sabre Mk4 retained the General Electric engine and was destined for the RAF and was later passed on to other overseas air forces. The Sabre Mk5 was the next production version, equipped with an Orunda 10 with 6,500 pound-forces thrust. A change to the Orunda 14 with 7,440 pound-forces powered the Sabre Mk6. The designation Sabre Mk7 was mainly experimental. The last Sabre to be manufactured by Canadair, after being donated by the Pakistan Air Force, is now part of the permanent collection in the Western Canada Aviation Museum in Winnipeg, Manitoba. From 1950 to 1958, a total of 1,815 centiliters-13 Sabres were built at the Canadair plant in Montreal. Operational history. The second generation of Canadair Sabre aircraft, and first to be built in quantity, was the Mk2, with 350 produced from 1950 to 1953. The RCAF received 290 of these improved aircraft. During the first half of 1952, the remaining 60 Mk2s were supplied to the U.S. Air Force for use in the Korean War. Most RCAF Mk2 Sabres were utilized in the air defense role with NATO's No. 1 Air Division in Europe, proving itself to be an outstanding dogfighter. Others were assigned to the training role at bases in Canada. After replacement by the Sabre 5 in RCAF service from 1954, just over 210 surviving Sabre 2s were overhauled and modified in the UK and supplied in roughly equal numbers to the Greek Air Force and Turkish Air Forces. In mid-1952, the Sabre Mk4 went into production with the first one flown on August 28, 1952. Apart from some minor structural and systems changes, including improved air conditioning and gun sight, the Mk2 and the Mk4 were identical. Of 438 Mk4s built, approximately 70 were used temporarily by the RCAF, all surviving examples being passed to the RAF. The other Sabre 4s went directly to the RAF under a mutual aid program, equipping 11 RAF squadrons. The majority served in West Germany with NATO, with 2 squadrons being based in the UK as part of RAF Fighter Command. The Sabre Mk4 served with the RAF until mid-1956 when they were replaced by Hawker Hunters. The survivors were overhauled in the UK, fitted with 6-3 wing modifications and handed to the USAF, which in turn passed them on to other NATO members, with the majority going to Italy and Yugoslavia. On July 30, 1953, the first Sabre Mk5 flew with the Orunda 10 engine, which gave it a clear rate of climb and ceiling advantage over earlier variants. Other Mk5 improvements included a new oxygen system and improved maneuverability and low-speed characteristics achieved by increasing the wing chord by 6 in at the root and 3 in at the wing tip, along with fitting a small vertical wing fence. This modification, originated by North American on the F-86F, dramatically improved maneuverability, though the loss of the slatted leading edge increased landing speed and degraded low-speed handling considerably. Canadair built 370 Mk5s with the majority designated for use in the RCAF A-1 registered trademark Air Division squadrons in Europe to replace the Mk2s. A total of 75 RCAF Sabre 5s were transferred to the German Luftwaffe during 1957. The Canadair Sabre Mk6 was the final variant and was considered to be the best production Sabre ever built. It was equipped with a two-stage O-Rounder engine developing 7,275 pounds of static thrust. Its altitude performance and climb rate was enhanced over the Mk5, and the reinstatement of the wing leading edge slat gave it excellent low-speed characteristics. The first production model was completed on November 2, 1954, and ultimately 655 were built, with production terminating on October 9, 1958. A total of 390 Mk6s went to the RCAF, with the majority replacing the existing Canadair Sabre Mk5s at the Air Division squadrons in West Germany and France. The main air threats to NATO in the 1950s in Central Europe were the early variants of the Soviet MiG, the MiG-15, MiG-17, MiG-19 and MiG-21. Based on the Korean War experience, the selection of the Mk6 Sabre to provide an effective opposition to the MiG threat proved to be a logical one. Canadair A-1 registered trademark S commitment to NATO was to provide 12 squadrons located at 4 bases, A-2 in France and 2 in West Germany. Initially, the contribution consisted of only Sabre aircraft. However, later it was decided to include the Avro-Canada CF-100 aircraft in the defense package to provide a night and all-weather fighter capability. In addition to the RCAF deliveries, 225 Canadair Mk6 Sabres were exported to the West German Luftwaffe, 6 were delivered to the Colombian Air Force, and 34 went to the South African Air Force. In January 1966, Germany sold 90 of its Canadian Mk6 Sabres to Iran. These aircraft were quickly transferred to Pakistan and became the main-day fighter of the Pakistan Air Force. Canadair Sabres were the mainstay of their respective air forces in the two major conflicts in which they were employed, the Korean War, where F-86 Sabres racked up an impressive 6-1 kill record, and the Indo-Pakistani War of 1971. The smaller, more diminutive Volante Gnat was its main opponent in the Indo-Pakistan War. By the end of 1971, the Gnat proved to be a frustrating opponent for the larger, heavier and older Sabre. The Gnat was referred to as a Sabre Slayer by the Indian Air Force since most of its combat kills during the two wars were against Sabres. Although the Canadair Sabre Mk6 was widely regarded as the best dogfighter of its era, tactics called for Gnats taking on the Sabres in the vertical arena, where the Sabres were at a disadvantage. Moreover, because the Gnat was lightweight and compact in shape, it was hard to see, especially at the low levels where most of the dogfights took place. Women's speed records. In 1952, Jacqueline Cochran, then aged 47, decided to challenge the world speed record for women, then held by Jacqueline Oriel. She tried to borrow an F-86 from the U.S. Air Force, but was refused. She was introduced to an Air Vice Marshal of the RCAF who, with the permission of the Canadian Minister of Defence, arranged for her to borrow 19,200, the Sol Sabre III. Canadair sent a 16-man support team to California for the attempt. On May 18, 1953, Ms. Cochran set a new 100 km speed record of 1,050.15 km per hour. Later on June 3, she set a new 15 km closed-circuit record of 1078 km per hour. While she was in California, she exceeded 1270 km per hour in a dive, and thus became the first woman to exceed the speed of sound. Golden Hawks. The Golden Hawks were a Canadian aerobatic flying team that was established in 1959 to celebrate the Royal Canadian Air Force's 35th anniversary and the Golden 50th anniversary of Canadian flight, which began with the AEA's Silver Dart in 1909. Initially, a six-plane team flying brilliantly painted metallic gold Canadair Sabre Mk5s, was envisioned as performing for only 1 year, but the Golden Hawks were so popular after their single 63-show season that the team was expanded. In the following year, another plane was added to the team, allowing for a 5-plane main formation with 2 solo jets. The Golden Hawks continued performing for 3 more seasons, changing to the Mk6 in 1961, until they were disbanded on February 7, 1964, having flown a total of 317 shows across North America. Variants: Sabre Mk1, 1 built, prototype F-86A. Sabre Mk2, 350 built, F-86E type, 60 to USAF, 3 to RAF, 287 to RCAF. Sabre Mk3, 1 built in Canada, testbed for the Orenda 3 jet engine. Various other structural modifications were made to accommodate the Orenda engine. Sabre Mk4, 438 built, production, 10 to RCAF, 428 to RAF as Sabre F4. Sabre Mk5, 370 built, F-86F type with Orenda engine, all to RCAF, 75 later passed to German Air Force. Sabre Mk6, 655 built, 390 to RCAF, 225 to Luftwaffe, 6 to Colombia and 34 to South Africa. Operators: Bangladesh, Canada, Royal Canadian Air Force, Colombia, Colombian Air Force, Germany, German Air Force, operated 75 Canadair Sabre Mk5 and 225 Canadair Sabre Mk6, 1957 to 1964, flown by JG-71, JG-72, and JG-73. The last Mk6 used for training was retired in 1983. Greece, Greek Air Force, Honduras, Honduran Air Force received 10X Yugoslav Air Force Sabres in 1976. Italy, Italian Air Force operated 179 Canadair CL-13 Sabre Mk4 from 1956 until 1976. Pakistan, Pakistan Air Force, 92nd Hand Royal Canadian Air Force aircraft supplied via Iran. South Africa, South African Air Force, Turkey, Turkish Air Force, United Kingdom, Royal Air Force, acquired 3 Canadair CL-13 Mark IIs and 428 Mark IVs, 8 December 1952–December 19, 1953. Assigned to RAF Sabre Squadrons 3, 4, 20, 26, 66, 67, 71, 92, 93, 112, 130, 147 and 234. During 1956–1958, 302 RAF Sabres were overhauled, modified in the UK and returned to the USAF in camouflage colours with Canadian serials and redesignated as F-86E, M, of which 121 were then sent to Yugoslavia and 179 to Italy. United States Air Force, Yugoslavia, SFR Yugoslav Air Force received 46 former RAF Canadair CL-13 MKIV in 1956–57 through Mutual Defense Aid Program, and bought another 78 ex-RAF machines from USAF in 1959, for a total of 121 Sabre C, F-86 and CL-13 Sabre operators. Survivors. Specifications. General characteristics: crew, 1, pilot, length, 37 feet 6 inches, wingspan, 37 feet 1½ in, height, 14 feet 9 in, empty weight, 10,618 pounds, max takeoff weight, 17,560 pounds, power plant, 1 Avro Canada Orenda 14 turbojet, 7,275 pound forces, performance, maximum speed, 710 miles per hour, range, 1,270 miles, service ceiling, 54,000 feet, rate of climb, 11,800 feet per minute, armament, guns, 60.50 and M3. Browning machine guns, rockets, variety of rocket launchers. For example, 2 Matra rocket pods with 18 SNEB 68 mm rockets per pod, missiles, 2 AIM-9 Sidewinders, bombs, 5,300 pounds of payload on 4 external hardpoints. Bombs are usually mounted on outer 2 pylons as the inner pairs are wet-plumbed pylons for 200 US gallons drop tanks to give the Sabre a useful range. A wide variety of bombs can be carried, napalm bomb canisters, and can include a tactical nuclear weapon. See also: related development, CAC Sabre, North American FJ-1 Fury, North American F-86 Sabre, North American F-86D Sabre, North American FJ-2/-3 Fury, aircraft of comparable role, configuration and era, Dassault Mystery, Mikoyan Gurevich MiG-15, related lists, list of fighter aircraft. References. Notes Bibliography External links, Robert Ali, F-86 Sabre page, information about F-86s still flying today, Sabre site, Canadair Sabres in J. Boer site.